I'm Maria Schwartz, and welcome to the Winsidr Show, where it's all about the W. From hosting this very show to building a WNBA expansion roster, our guest today is well known in the W world, taking analytical approach to the W to new heights. He has worked for the LA Sparks for many years, and now he is the assistant GM of the Toronto Tempo. Very excited for this episode and to welcome Eli Horowitz. Before we get into today's show, just a quick reminder, Winsidr is fully independent WNBA coverage. Everything we do is supported by listeners like you. If you enjoy what we're doing here, you can help keep it going by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Winsidr. With pricing levels for everyone, you can directly show support for the work we do, putting coverage to the W year round. We also have a great full team producing great written coverage over at winsidr.com, plus more content than ever across TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky/X, and YouTube. And finally, if you're in the market for WNBA gear, check the affiliate links in the show notes and on winsidr.com. You get to rep the league, and Winsidr gets a little support along the way. Welcome back to the Winsidr Show. Very excited to be here. It feels like it's maybe been a few years in the making. My guest today, the Eli Horowitz, assistant GM of the Toronto Tempo, one of the newest WNBA teams. Side note, I hate for you that you can't say the newest WNBA team because there's the debate with Portland. I don't know. Technically, like, whatever. Stupid. All right. How you doing, man? How's it going?
I'm doing well. Excited to reconnect and do the show today.
Very excited. So first things first, the Sun traded Anissa Morrow for the 2028 second round pick and Masha Klindikova. You fleeced them. How did you do it? No, I'm joking. We're not going to get into that. Don't worry. I love the trade, though. I love the move. I love what the Tempo have been doing. But in all seriousness, let's dive into this. Before we get into the Tempo, I want to discuss your story a little bit. Obviously, I know it. We've known each other for a while now. Met in DC. You started coaching, I believe it was AAU.
Yeah,
Right.
AAU and girls high school basketball in Oxon Hill, Maryland at Potomac High School.
Shout out to Potomac High School. Then you go into the WNBA media side, working for, in my opinion, the best independent WNBA media outlet, writing, recording, podcasts, and all of that. Then moving on over to the PR side of things with the LA Sparks. You spend, honestly, it feels like it was 10 years, but it was probably like, what, 5, 6, 7, something like that. A long time.
Yeah, I was with LA from 2018 to the beginning of the 2025 season, obviously in all the roles there, but that was my tenure there.
And I think that's like, first of all, I tell people this on, behind the scenes on the Winsidr side with people who are getting into the industry. Like, I use you as an example all the time of somebody who so passionately driven about the league, about the sport, and about the game, and was able to say, hey, I can get into the league in this role. I can work my butt off, work hard, show my value in other roles, and grow and expand what I'm doing and get to a point, where I think you're finally in the jobs that you wanted to be when you were joining the LA Sparks, wanting to be in a decision-making role, in a role where you're helping build this roster, build this team. But tell me in your words, like, how has that been? How has it been for you to learn different sides of the team aspect, of the building a roster, of the PR, all these different things, being on the other side? Both sides more than a lot of people. And honestly, also shout out, you've done a great job of giving opportunities to other WNBA dedicated media members, analysts, things like that, to work in the Tempo. So I'm curious for you, kind of, obviously you don't need to go into like a 10-minute dialogue like I just did, but give me a little breakdown of like what that experience has been like for you.
Well, no, I appreciate you saying that. And I think similar to you, it all starts with just a passion for this league and women's basketball, right? Coming off coaching high school girls and the journalism piece, it was about noticing the lack of coverage of women's sports, the lack of sponsorship deals. Remember, we used to always talk about and tweet about women's sports getting 4% of media coverage and less than 1% of sponsorship dollars. And obviously, incredible progress has been made and still a long way to go. But I feel like regardless of the role I've been in, whether it was PR, analytics, now in the assistant GM role and being more on the scouting and roster construction side, like that mission has never changed, right? It's about growing this league. It's about making sure WNBA players get the resources they deserve. And I think even on the front office side, they deserve to be in a league where front offices are properly staffed, where this is taken at the same level of seriousness and complexity as the NBA. And so I think while my roles have shifted, it's that same drive of this should look the same, if not even better than what it does in men's sports. And it all stems back to because of the players and them deserving that ecosystem.
Yeah, no, it's very, very true. And I mean, we talked about this for years now, it feels like, of feet dragging, front offices not in. And first of all, today's day and age, there's more teams than ever. There's more roster spots than ever in the WNBA. Well, not more than ever teams. We'll be getting there. More roster spots than ever. And like at the end of the day, I always, maybe this is oversimplification. There's only 100 top 100 basketball players in America. You start going overseas. If you can only get, the 80th best player in America, you look overseas, you can get a top 10. That changes the trajectory of your team, of your roster, of so much of what you're able to do. But you can't know about those top 10 players overseas if your front office is not invested, not just, in facilities, which teams are finally getting up on, not just in, high tech things in the training facilities, not just the facilities, the whatevers, but also looking out for those players. So, I mean, you and I years ago were talking about tracking, like we used to watch overseas games and like talk about how we need to cover the league year round because of how important the overseas players are and how they're going to make a huge impact in this league. And we're seeing that on your team. We're seeing that on other expansion teams. Okay, so you get to Toronto, and I'm always so curious. So like, remind me, because this offseason was insane. When you were hired, there was no head coach hired. Like, what was the staff of the Tempo? There was a GM, you got hired. What, like, there was ownership, obviously, but like, how many of these other positions were filled? How much of that buildup is we need to fill the positions to fit what our kind of our goal of a team is, or how much of it is like, let's bring in people and figure out what our goal as a team is? If I don't even know if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think we decided people first, right? So before we had a strategy of what do we want the roster to look like, what is our style of play, what is our timeline for success and contention, it was to the point of how do we build out a front office that is equipped to have sustainable success in the modern WNBA. And I give a ton of credit to our GM, Monica Rogers. She was obviously the first employee on the basketball side, and she had the vision of we're going to do this the right way, right? It's not going to be a GM/head coach or just a GM and that's it. She wanted a full basketball strategy team. So she brought me on as assistant GM, but also senior vice president of basketball strategy. And I only emphasize that to show that there was a commitment to a full team in the front office doing basketball strategy. Not the days where in the past where just the coaching staff did scouting or analytics. You had a full strategy team being built in the front office. So I give her a lot of credit for having that foresight. I think you've seen some other teams also doing that. We're not the only ones, and some have beefed it up even in the last year and a half. But I think for her to do that on day one of an expansion team kind of showed the vision that I wanted to be a part of. Of course, so you had her, then she hired me, just speaking on the basketball side. And then, of course, the head coaching search was super important. I think Monica's vision was to have her, myself, and that head coach kind of being a brain trust of decision making, and the opportunity to bring on Sandy Brondello, a two-time champion, someone that's done this with different organizations, obviously the head coach of Team Australia, just all the experience she brought, and a lot of competition to get her. So again, another big win for Monica and the Tempo to land someone of that caliber. And then we built out the strategy team from there. So we have a full-time scouting manager, Mark Schindler, who you mentioned, coming from the media space, someone who invested a lot of time in learning international basketball and really getting in the weeds and really working hard. We have a full-time data analyst and scientist, Lauren Manis, who's excellent and has led all of our modeling. You know, we had to do draft model, we had to do expansion draft modeling, we had to do free agency modeling. So it was really important to get that hire right. We have a full-time basketball administrative coordinator, Benji Albert, and then we have freelance scouts. So we have a freelance international scout, Alberto Antuña, a Spanish coach, who's been instrumental to, you know, I'm sure we'll get to that, but we have players from over 8 different countries. And so he's played a role in that. And then we have several freelance college scouts and advanced scouts. So, and we're going to add more positions, but that was kind of the setup before we even had one player, just to kind of show how serious we were about building out a full front office.
Which is insane. And also, I mean, before we even get to the players, there was no CBA. Like, the whole time I'm sitting on my end and I'm just like, this is a unique sense of torture for the Tempo and the Fire, because how do you navigate, I mean, as a team, how do you navigate that situation where legitimately there's no CBA? You can, I mean, some people are like, all right, well, just work off of what the last CBA is, but so many things could be changed. I mean, so how do you, yeah, I'm curious, like, was that even a conversation? How much of it is, you know, getting inside information from what's going on in the negotiations to try and get an inkling of an idea? And if you're not allowed to do that, then ignore that part of the question. But I'm just like so curious of how you were able, because, you know, from the media side, it was an insane, I mean, and this is just the free agency period now where we had the, you know, a holdout or not a holdout, whatever. It was like they delayed the signing of the CBA, the negotiations went on. And then you have then you have a crazy free agency, a crazy expansion draft, a crazy WNBA draft, like all of that normal free agency or normal offseason 3-month period happened in like 2 weeks. And how, like, were you just pulling college all-nighters with tons of Red Bull and Celsius to like study the CBA, or like how? That's a long question. Answer what you can.
No, I mean, obviously with the CBA and everything not coming until March, obviously building this team in 10 days is kind of our, it's kind of what we were, the cards we were dealt, and that was challenging. But I'm proud of our group, and I think it stems back to your last question. Like, part of building that strategy team before we even had a player is that we started to just look at it as an opportunity. So we don't know the CBA, we don't know the timing, but instead of just sitting around, it was like, we can from scratch figure out how do we want to approach a WNBA draft? How do we want to approach free agency? Who are all the best players in the whole world? Let's leave no stone unturned. Let's look at every league. Let's look at leagues that haven't gotten attention. So in some ways, we kind of had this 6-month period with a strategy team to figure out how we would approach something in an ideal world without any constraints. And so we'd spend many days in our conference room doing different modeling, looking at film from players all over the world. And in some ways, we had maybe some time without the constraints of certain rules to really figure out the types of players we wanted to go after and how we wanted to build it. So I think hiring that team made it so that once the CBA was signed, we didn't feel panicked. I think the free agency period was probably where that timeline hurt us the most, just not having as much time to show players Toronto. I think we had plenty of time to prepare for expansion in the draft and free agency, but I think that's maybe where expansion teams were hurt a little bit of just not kind of having that in-market opportunity with free agents.
No balloon scandals by the Toronto Tempo this year. No, it's very true. Because like, I mean, even a few years back, I remember how cool it was when free agency started to tick up in the W, and we started to see players, you know, showing how they got flown out to whatever team's facilities and shown around, and they had the big screen and they had the balloons, or they made a custom video game controller, or whatever it was. There was all these different things that teams were doing, and you truly didn't have that opportunity as much
100%. And
Yeah,
I'll give,
yeah,
Monica and Sandy did a great job. I, can't share everything, but we had some incredible Zooms and meetings with players. But I think that piece we're excited about for next offseason and the future is to really show free agents Toronto because, I don't know if you're familiar with the city, but it's one of
no,
the great cities in North America. Very different than Chicago, New York, LA, but in scope, it's an incredible metropolitan area that's diverse, has incredible cuisine, water, park space, just a very fun and vibrant city. And so excited. I know a lot of players are getting to experience it coming in as a road team. And I think it'll just kind of grow from here as a market people want to be in.
yeah, and we've seen the early success expansion teams have had. Golden State. Before we get into that, because I am curious, kind of how much of your modeling, how much of your planning is looking at Golden State or looking at other leagues who have had expansions. But I'm curious for you. We're on the outside. You're on the inside. What is some? And I know you're on social media. What is something that you see that we're all getting wrong that like we just don't understand about the expansion draft and expansion team or just this whole experience for the tempo, the fire, or whatever? What are we getting wrong?
I mean, I think you guys have been pretty on the ball. It sounds like you may have a theory about this.
No, I think we get a lot wrong because we so often as media members we assign onto the teams what they are trying to do, and then we criticize them for not achieving that. And this is like my hill I die on. And so I always want to learn as much as I can. Like there's the team is going to tell their narrative. And I want to understand what their narrative is so I understand what they're trying to do. And you tell me what you're trying to do, and then I can criticize you if you succeed in that or not. And I can criticize you if I think that's the wrong move or, that isn't what you should be trying to do. And I think so often we get bogged down into this is what the team should be doing. And it's like, we don't even know that. Like I could sit here on my computer, my keyboard, whatever, be a keyboard warrior and be like, you signed amazing backcourt scorers, wing players. There's missing front court depth or something like that. I mean, it seemed like there was reporting that you wanted to add front court, whatever. You make a great move before the trade deadline. I'm just curious, like, when is it as simple as, I guess you kind of already touched on this. Is it as simple as like, hey, come to our team. This is what our vision is. This is what we want. Because you're an expansion team. Like, how different? All right, no, this is the real question. How different is it for you, who's been part of an established franchise? I mean, one of the first franchises, the LA Sparks, to now being, and I'm not asking you to like throw shade or anything, but like those are two very different. You have an established franchise. It's LA, like a marquee market in America. Kind of like we were talking about with Toronto. You want to bring people there to show them how amazing it is. Whether or not the Los Angeles Sparks franchise is winning championships or in the lottery, it's LA. People want to be there. So I'm curious for you, like in that comparison of like an established franchise versus like, look at how amazing we are. Is it as simple as just shaking people and being like, hey, look at how cool Toronto is and look at we're succeeding. We got all like, you got accolades this year, man. Like your team's, you're not number one in the standings, but you're having great success, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I think that's maybe where back to kind of your overall question here is just that every expansion team is different. I think I'm not going to say anyone's missing that, but maybe that could be a little bit of the misconception, right? For example, Golden State Valkyries, I mean, they've been incredible. I mean, it's, they deserve all the credit in the world, how they play on the court, the overall organization. I mean, they've certainly set the bar extremely high for an expansion team. But I think maybe a misconception, whether it's us, Portland, 3 expansion teams are coming, is that you could just copy and paste that, right? Every market is different. Every ownership group is different. Staffs are different. Markets are different. Timelines are different, right? For Portland and Toronto, a CBA got signed in March and a team had to be built in 10 days, right? For the 3 expansion teams coming, they may have more time, or who knows, right? Other factors that we can't even anticipate today. So I would say that's maybe, again, not a misconception, but just something I think people should keep in mind, that every expansion team is going to have a unique set of circumstances. They're coming into the league at a different time. How strong is the draft that year? How strong is the free agent class? Is their goal to win right away, or is their goal to build over a set of years? And there's not a right or wrong answer. There's not a better or worse way, but each team is going to have to find what will work for them. So I think that's just something people should keep in mind when they look at each expansion team coming into the league. And then, of course, us in Portland having to share an expansion draft. That's extremely different. I think maybe that would kind of be my answer, because when you're not sharing an expansion draft, you're not thinking about the order of picks. You're not thinking really about the strategy of the draft in terms of executing it on the spot, right? You're just saying, okay, who are the players that are unprotected and who do we want, as opposed to what is Portland going to do and how would we respond? And there's thousands of permutations of how it could go when you're drafting A, B. And we had to do a lot of modeling around the different scenarios. If they do A, do we do B or do we do C? If they do B, do we do C or do we do D? And you can go on and on. And I do think that is an extremely unique circumstance that us and Portland faced, that is just different. It's just different. And there's pros and cons to, I think, each expansion team's environment as they come in. But I think it's important fans understand that each of these teams, Cleveland, Detroit, Philly, are going to face their own set of challenges and opportunities.
Oh, totally. I mean, I'm no math genius or anything, and I appreciate your perspective on that, because I view it as Toronto and Portland have gotten the short end of the stick. Like, that's just we look at the expansions, they're coming in one by one, and then we throw two at this time. It's just not fair. Like, that's just my take. Maybe it's oversimplified, whatever. And for many reasons, for the expansion draft, for free agency, for the situation of the CBA, being negotiated so late, I think all of that compounded to just make it flat out unfair for these two franchises. That's just my take. And it's going to be really interesting moving forward. And I appreciate the tempo mindset of, like, we're not going to sit here and be woe is me, because this is what we were played. This is what we have. This is what we need to do. And you've charged forward in a great way. And I like that you brought that up. I'm Golden State Valkyries, I feel like, really put the fire to the feet for all the expansion teams coming after, because, like you said, everyone's going to assume it's a copy paste. Just do what they did. Why aren't you just doing what they did? That's not how it works. But I love that you also brought up that some teams have short-term plans, long-term plans, whatever. Are you prepared to give us a 5-year championship guarantee for the Toronto like the Valkyries did?
No, that's a bit above my pay grade. But you know what I will say is, one thing that we were inspired by Golden State is our goal is to compete. We brought in 2-time champion Sandy Brondello as a head coach. Monica, our general manager, won 2 championships with the Lynx. I know a team that's very close to you, and both of them have championship mindsets. Sandy also played in the WNBA, and so to have, we were the first team, we're the only team right now with a GM and head coach who are both former players, and our goal is to compete. I think if you look at how we approached the expansion draft, the roster we built in a short period of time, even you mentioned the front court, right? We didn't ultimately land her, but we signed Shakira Austin to an offer sheet. That was the first offer sheet since 2019, pairing the idea to potentially pair her with Brittany Sykes and Marina Mabry, who are very strong veteran guards, Julie Alaman, a veteran guard. And then, of course, we got some really good young players around that. But our goal is to compete. And we were 9-9, and I believe around 8th place in the standings. I know we were 8th in net rating. I look more at the analytics sometimes than just the actual standings, believe it or not. But we were 8th in net rating, and 9-9 about halfway through the season. So when fully healthy, this roster showed to be a playoff team, at worst right on the precipice of that 8 seed. And unfortunately, we've had the third most games lost to injury and illness and the most in-season games lost, which is a little bit different, right? The two teams ahead of us had some injuries coming into the season, or they had season-ending injuries. And so we've had the third most games in the WNBA lost to injury this year. So after 9-9, having Brittany Sykes, Kiki Rice, our post players miss a big chunk of the season, our record obviously has taken a bit of a tumble, but our goal will continue to be to compete, and we're confident that we can kind of get back to that place you saw early in the season, make some additions in this offseason, and get right back to kind of that momentum we built in those first 20 games as we move, through the rest of 2026 and then into 2027.
Yeah, because look, you're not trying to just like win today and then, peace out, we're out of the league tomorrow. This is a long-term thing. And I want you to talk to me a little bit real quickly, to a two-part question. I don't have too much more time, but one, when building out this roster, I'm curious. Yes, you have an established coach, an established winner as a coach. Honestly, like I remember when New York and Sandy split and thinking to myself, oh, one of these expansion teams just is licking their chops. This is not fair. Like that's not supposed to happen, that you have an opportunity to get a coach like Sandy to lead your expansion team like that. And there's just so many reasons why I think it's an amazing fit and why I love this roster, because this roster isn't, hey, let me take a note out on this player. It's some established players, it's some overseas players, it's some players that maybe are deserving of bigger roles, but it's also some flashy players. It's also some players who like to talk the talk, which I personally just love. It's also some players that you've had some close proximity to in LA, and Sandy's had some proximity to in New York, but very roundabout. So two-part question. One, talk to me about Kiki Rice, because her season, for the start of her season before the injury, was ridiculous. I think blew a lot of people's minds because, and please nobody take this in shade towards Kiki, coming into the season, all the talk was Flage, was Awa, was Olivia Miles, and was AZ Fudd. And it felt like Kiki kind of got swept under until the game started. Once the game started, you couldn't sweep that name under the rug. You could not ignore what she was doing. And she kind of like, there was a tweet that I literally can see right now early in the season that was like, what Olivia Miles is doing is ridiculous, and this isn't taking away from her, but we need to be talking about Rice and a legitimate conversation of Rookie of the Year and what we're seeing. Obviously, you guys were super happy to be able to get her. And my other question is kind of, in terms of adding a player like that, what, like when you're building a roster, do you think to yourself, we want to bring on players who have some like skills that they can pass along to a younger player? Like how much of that mindset of, because we're talking about a long-term thing here. This isn't, you're drafting a player. You're not looking to win and dip out after year one. We're talking about a medium, short, long-term success here. So how much of like, oh, Marina or Britt could educate Kiki on this, or Julie, or like how much of that goes into it, and how excited were you to get an opportunity to get Rice?
I'm really glad you asked about her, because we haven't gotten to her yet in this conversation, but a lot of our strategy, dating back to the expansion draft, actually was around Kiki Rice. And as you remember, with the rules, the team that won the coin toss had a decision. Do we draft first in the expansion draft and then the 7th pick in the WNBA draft, or do we take the 6th pick in the WNBA draft and go second in the expansion draft? And we won the coin toss and actually elected to go second in the expansion draft to get the higher college draft pick and taking that 6th pick, because we felt we had a shot at Kiki Rice if we were going 6th. And this is a player we scouted. I mean, for me, being in LA all these years, I've been watching her entire collegiate career, so many practices, games, but our entire group, coaching staff and front office, we're aligned pretty early in the college season that this was a player that we could really build around. Um, to find a foundational lead guard like that in the draft is hard, as you know, and you see that the quality of guards coming into this league. I mean, don't want to name all of them, but it's just incredible the talent coming to this league at that guard position right now. And so we felt it was so important to identify a lead guard that we could build with, to your point, not just for this season, but for years to come. And we identified her as someone that just a complete player, plays both sides. Her 3-point shot really developed at UCLA. She gets to the rim, she defends. And what stood out to us too was you look at that UCLA team, right? She was playing with so many great players, including Lauren Betts, a traditional post player, and she just found ways to be productive and make an impact, right? They didn't build the team around her. They didn't have her take 20, 30 shots, right? She showed that she could play around other great players. So kind of to your point there with knowing we're targeting some other really good players too, this was a player that could mold with other good players, but also grow for the future to build around. And so a lot of our strategy really did revolve ultimately around, could we get Kiki Rice as someone to build around? And I think you saw through those first 10 games, and then last night against a really, really athletic and really talented Atlanta team, 18 points off the bench, 6 assists, but most importantly, 0 turnovers. I mean, a rookie for her as a rookie to be someone that's already that dependable with the ball. And I think someone like Julie Almon, right, having an impact on that. Marina, Brittany Sykes in our guard group. So really, as you can tell, we're very excited about Kiki Rice.
And I would honestly add, like, obviously you never want a player to get injured, but if a player has to get injured and it's not going to be like some horrible season ending, whatever, it can be a blessing in disguise in this season. And I'm just going to put it out there. You don't need to agree, disagree, just in the sense of like, you get to view the game in a different way. You go from college and the highs of college and all that craziness into the league. You're on an expansion team. The craziness of everything happening this season, we don't need to get into that. But now, and you're playing amazing. And it sucks to be knocked off that horse and have to sit down there for a second or a few. But to be able to view the game in a different sense after you've had success, for me, this is, maybe I'm wrong, this is my theory, I think it sets you up for more success because you now have that opportunity to sit back and learn, slow the game down a little bit, also rest. I mean, we talk about women's basketball players playing year round and we often focus on the overseas players in that regard. We don't talk enough about the college players, especially if they have success in the tournament, which often top draft picks do. You have no break and you're going right into the WNBA season. And yeah, so I think, look, might be a blessing in disguise, might impact, her stat line this season, but in the long term, which is what we're talking about, it's really impressive.
No, 100%. I think she's still, and I'm a little biased, but I think if, she continues producing at the level she did pre-injury and as she has post-injury, I still feel she deserves to be in that all-rookie conversation. But I think second point too is, one silver lining, of course, we've been devastated by injuries and it's not what we were hoping for, but you get to see the emergence of some people, like you mentioned, in bigger roles. I mean, even Marina Mabry, first-time All-Star, 53 points to tie record for most points in a game. She has the most 30-point performances this year besides Asia Wilson. And then even that game she scored 53, the Tempo scored 125 points, which set the record for most points in regulation in a game. And we're getting to see the emergence of Marina in a bigger role. And then back to the international scouting, someone like Laura Uskaita and Maria Conde, who are both top 10 in 3-point percentage among rookies. And we're getting to see what it looks like for them playing bigger minutes. And I think that'll only benefit the Tempo moving forward.
Yeah. And like, that's the thing. I find the GM position such a fun job. Obviously, I'm sure there's stresses and you pull all your hair out, but like you get to sit there and you get to, try these different things and see players who haven't had as great opportunities, especially now with the league expanding, more expansion drafts coming. Players are going to get plucked. And we'll have to have you back on when you're on the other side of the expansion draft, trying to protect your goods as opposed to steal the goods, and how that's different. But you touched on this, like, you guys are building legacy. You are in the middle of making history. 53 points, which, side note, I already went on a rant on this. It almost kind of felt like she didn't want to break the record. She wanted to tie it and join that like exclusive club of the 53ers. That's just my take. It versus like,
I love it.
she was, and which is like mind blowing with Marina, because she's that type of player who's like, I'm going to do this. Her vibe is one of my favorite on the league. No, totally. I think it's really cool. But what's it like for you to look around and be like, oh, we're building this? Like, we look back. I'm sure I keep bringing up the Sparks because we're in the 30th season. You used to work there, but like, we look back at those clips of like the first tip off or the first basket, or these, like, you are part of the Tempo's first basket. You're part of the Tempo's first win. You're part of all of these things that, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, hopefully 80 years down the road are like, you're going to be a bar trivia question. Who was the assistant GM when the Toronto Tempo had their expansion draft? Or who was the assistant GM when Marina Mabry set the record for most points in a game in the WNBA? Is that something that you're like reflecting on and aware of in those moments? Or do you have time to reflect on that? Or are you kind of waiting till the end of the season?
There was a moment, it happened in both our first preseason game and regular season home game. End of the first quarter. And I think one of them we were winning, one we were losing, but not even the point. Standing ovation at Coca-Cola Coliseum at the end of the first quarter. And I feel like that was a moment that really hit me like, wow, like this is really special. Like this is history, but also for Canada, for them to have a WNBA team. That's a moment that really stands out to me. I thought about it, like, I can't recall that having ever watched a game in any sport where end of the first quarter, a standing ovation happens, and there's really less about any play that happened in the game, right? It was just, we've arrived, basically. And that to me, like, there's probably a lot I could talk about of Tempo first and the legacy and many other things that are important, but just wanted to share that because that to me is when it really hit, like, what this means to Toronto, to Canada as a whole, and I think to the league as a whole, to have an international team and to come into Canada. And I think you see that energy in Portland and Golden State, and I'm sure we'll get it with the 3 expansion teams coming. How important these teams are to these communities and to young girls and boys to get to experience this. I think we talked about that over the years, like part of it, even probably some of our friends, where it's like maybe the WNBA wasn't around them growing up. And so it's not that they don't like the WNBA or aren't open to it. It's just not what they grew up on, right? And sometimes it can be hard. It's like learning a language, right? It can be hard when you're already in your 20s or 30s to like fully dive in. And now you have all these boys and girls where it's like WNBA is day one for them as a sports fan. And so I think that's really powerful. But yeah, that moment was really cool. And Kia Nurse hitting the 3-pointer in our preseason game was like the first basket. So yeah, there's been some really cool moments where you kind of have to take a step back and realize this is bigger than any one person or player or coach or front office member. And this is like a whole country is kind of getting to experience this for the first time.
That's really cool. You gave me goosebumps talking about that standing ovation. It's been really cool to watch it. And I'm totally with you. I have 2 young kids. Gus, my 4-year-old Augustus, he literally, like, he doesn't know the NBA exists. The W is the only thing he knows. And it is so amazing for me to see that. And for me to see that, like, these generations of people are growing up with it easily accessible. Whereas, like, I know people who are younger than 30 who, like, yeah, the W is around, but it wasn't as easily accessible, and they just, don't know about it. Really beautiful, really thankful and grateful for your time.
Can I flip the script on you? I'm just,
yeah.
I feel like you've been really invested in this space a long time. And been covering this focus on the WNBA, and I think before this, even this kind of recent boom in media coverage, like how did you get kind of so passionate about the WNBA?
It's a good question. I mean, for me, I think you make a personal connection to it. And that's why I think, expanding to different cities, going to Canada, like when they had that preseason game in Canada, like it was emotional for me because for me, it was as simple as I'm from Minnesota. I went to a Minnesota Lynx game. I saw the game, and I've yet to come across anybody who goes to a WNBA game and goes, who likes basketball. Some people hate basketball, but to go to a WNBA game and like basketball and then not come out and be like, I want to see more of this. That, like, I've never come across that. And so I similarly, like, I went to a game. And when you have a hometown investment, when you have that feel that like this is your team, you really get bought into it. And like over the years, honestly, it's grown into like, first it was the Lynx, then it grew into the Sparks a little bit also, and then it grew into this team, and then it like slowly becomes like the whole league. You are just like, that's what you care about. You care about the growth of the league. You care about these opportunities. You care about, I always say when we're hiring people, like we want to hire the people who are passionate about the W, because we're a stepping stone at Winsidr. We know people are going to move on to bigger and better things, just like you. And like, we want to give opportunities to those people who are passionate and love the W, so that when they move on to bigger and better positions, it's kind of trickles down what they're doing. They're able to be people making decisions. You're able to now sit there and go, hey, Monica, we need X, Y, and Z so that we can be a competitive basketball team. Not that she didn't already know that you needed it, but like, you're able to be in that position, or to stand up and say, hey, 10 years ago when I was with the LA Sparks, this happened. Or, 9 years ago or 12 years ago when I was in the media space, this happened. And blah, blah, blah. And like, you're able to understand the history of it, where a lot of people, are new to the W. And I think we need to welcome them, but we also need to give them a little bit of like, when you start the new season of Ted Lasso and they give like the short recap, we need to give like a short recap. And we need to make that personal connection to people, because when you have that personal connection, you become defensive, and you'll give your money. You want the success, and it's like, it's do or die. It's oxygen for you. Like, the W is oxygen for me. Like, this is the league. I no longer really follow the Vikings as close. I no longer am like really paying attention to other sports leagues. Like, it's the W. It's an amazing league. The players are amazing. Yeah, I don't know. We've been at this for a while. It's
No, I appreciate. Sorry to put you on the spot, but
no,
I think similar to people on teams at the league level, the media is a critical component to the growth of this league, and so it's also fun to hear the stories of the people that are grinding in that space, and in my opinion, playing just as important role as anyone in the league in growing this thing.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think we there needs to be that appreciation and respect for each other, because you get it, because you've been on both sides, and I'm sure that at times when you were on the media side, it was easy for you to, you know blah towards the league side, and when you're the league side, maybe there's times where it's easy for you to blah towards the media side. But I think you have a nice even keel to it, because you've been on both sides. And I think, in the W space, there's a lot of people who are saying mean things and don't actually care about the growth of the W and the sport and the league and the players and the teams. Like, and then there's the people who do. They care about the player. You can care about the players. You can care about the franchise. You can care about the league. And you can care about, the media also, and the coverage of the league and all these things. Nuance. It's much needed these days. Eli, I appreciate you. I know I've kept you long. You got formulas to create so that you guys win the next expansion draft, the next free agency, and all those jazz. Very excited to see what you do in the future, and to have you on again, because I do want to dive into. I would love to pick your brain about overseas basketball. We touched on a little bit. We didn't really have time. I mean, it's almost like you have an Olympic roster where you pluck someone from all these different countries, put them on this one team, onto an international team, which, side note, I think is really, really cool. And of course you have to have a Canadian player on the team. I feel like that had to be an unwritten rule. I won't put you on the spot there, but very excited to talk to you more when we get that opportunity, and also to check in later and discuss with you what's it like being on the opposite side of the expansion draft as a new team. So I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on, and we'll chat more later.
Thanks for having me.